Any of you all have been to Solidarity 1, Solidarity 2, or Solidarity 3 in Boston? I'm sure you're familiar with a very, very popular chant. And I really want to start off this evening with this chant. And I'm sure Tony knows what this is. Union! 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 Okay, very good. Okay, not everybody's in the spirit here. Okay, well, for those of you who are not familiar with the major struggle that the militant Boston School Bus Drivers Union, United Steelworkers 8751, has been involved in against a united frontal attack by the Boston administration, which started with Mayor Menino and now is being carried forth by the current mayor, Marty Walsh, on behalf of the French-based union-busting transnational Veolia. I just want to give a little bit of background information before getting into the current situation. The struggle is entering its 10th month since Veolia locked out the union last October, when the corporation refused to hear the justified grievances of the workers once Veolia started to violate the contract that they signed with the union on July 1st, 2013. By early November 2013, Veolia stepped up its anti-union assault by firing 4 leaders of the union: Steve Kirschbaum, Andre Francois, Gary Murchison, and Steve Gillis. And what was their so-called crime? According to Veolia, Veolia says they instigated a quote-unquote wildcat strike, which was a bold-faced lie to try to divide the drivers from the community, especially the parents and the school children the drivers transport every day. The so-called wildcat strike was in reality a vicious lockout of the workers on October 8th. And to this day, even the Boston Globe, that mouthpiece for the ruling class, still refers to the lockout as a wildcat strike, to demonize the fired workers, and especially Steve Kirschbaum, who is a founder of the union and chair of the grievance committee. Why has this union been so viciously targeted by Veolia? Well, from an economic point of view, 8751 has had an exemplary record of fighting for and winning the best wages, benefits, and decent working conditions for its workers, who are at 98% Haitian, Cape Verdean, and African American. But to take that even further, 8751 also has an exemplary record in standing in political solidarity with other workers fighting for justice, including national liberation, both here and worldwide, including the Colombian Coca-Cola workers in Latin America, the Palestinians fighting for the right to return, and especially what is going on right now with the terrorist siege of Gaza. They also have a righteous record of supporting LGBTQ rights. In fact, there was a float in this year's Gay Pride demonstration in Boston praising the record, the solidarity that this union has shown to the LGBT community. And then there's the struggle that's going on now, which is really part and parcel of really why they want to crush this union. And that is the struggle against the resegregation of the Boston schools. And I'm so glad Eddie brought up the tremendous demonstration, the March Against Racism in Boston in 1974, because really we need another type of demonstration like this today. And who knows, maybe it'll happen in light of what's going on in Boston. The overall goal of Veolia and the city of Boston is to break the union, meaning to force it to take life and death concessions and cuts of pay, benefits, and also to tolerate intolerable working conditions. And because both Steve Gillis and Steve Kirschbaum are Workers' World Party leaders, their firings are meant to scare off other class-conscious unionists who are moving in an anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist direction, especially as the global economic crisis deepens poverty, low-wage jobs, and all forms of austerity on almost every continent. But comrades and friends, if Veolia and the city of Boston thought that this union would just roll over and give in to all of the red baiting and economic attacks that they have brought to bear, especially on the four fired leaders, they have gotten a rude awakening. This union has not shown any signs of backing down from not only the mayor and his repressive state, especially the police, and also including the media, but also they're not backing down from Veolia, that seeks to privatize everything it can get its greedy tentacles on, including water and transportation. Not only has Team Solidarity, a rank-and-file group of 8751 members and supporters, organized Solidarity 1, Solidarity 2, and Solidarity 3, which has brought out hundreds of labor community supporters for 8751. But just recently, Solidarity Day 4 was held this past Monday, July 14th, at the arraignment hearing of Kirschbaum in Dorchester District Court. And this brings me to the latest attack on the union and why this arraignment took place in the first place. I would like to read a portion of a public statement signed by Andrew Slip, who is a staff representative of the United Steelworkers International District 4, and also signed by Steve Gillis, who's the vice president of the union, and he's still the vice president, although he's been fired by Veolia. And this sort of explains the events that led up to the arraignment for Steve Kirschbaum. Thank you. Okay, it says on July 3rd, 2014, 4 plainclothes Boston police detectives paid 2 visits to Brother Kirschbaum's home while he was at the Boston Teachers Union in contract negotiations with Veolia. The Lieutenant Thomas Hopkins served Steve's daughter with his summons, charging him with 4 felony counts that include assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, trespass, breaking and entering during the daytime to commit a felony, and malicious destruction of property. By the way, they didn't even attempt to arrest Steve anytime that this took place. You have 4 felony charges. Seems like they would have had a warrant for your arrest, but they didn't even try to arrest him. These false and defamatory and outrageous charges are identified as, quote, offensives, alleged to have occurred on June 30th at the Solidarity Day rallies in March. On June 30th, Solidarity Day, on Solidarity Day, June 30th, nearly 500 steelworker, Boston school bus drivers and supporters took the struggle against Veolia and the city's union busting to the streets surrounding the Freeport bus yard and Veolia corporate headquarters. Protesters were demanding the rehiring of the 4 illegally fired leaders. They were also protesting for a just new contract and joining with the community of Boston saying no to the city's austerity cutbacks. The protest, including an opening rally featuring labor and community supporters, followed by a march to Veolia headquarters for another rally. The demonstrators then took to the streets again, concluding with an impromptu, quote-unquote, union membership briefing in the Freeport driver's room. The union leaders advised both company representatives and the police that the union members were asserting their contract right to, quote, access to the property to conduct, quote, union activity. And this is a quote from Article 15 of their union contract. Because this was a critical briefing on that day's contract negotiations. as the contract expiration was just hours away, which was July 1st. The doors to the facilities were unlocked and open. The union drivers, monitors, families, and supporters had access to the drivers' room facilities all day on the 30th, and that's always been the case. There was no issue of, quote, disruption of operations, as there were no operations taking place at that time of the day. The company's illegal efforts to stop the meeting by calling the police proved ineffective in deterring the union. The meeting was held in an orderly, peaceful manner, and the gathering dispersed at the conclusion without incident. There are scores of witnesses that can confirm that the charges against Steve are absolutely false. And also the people's lawyer for the union, a criminal lawyer, Barry Wilson, took the statements of 40 people before the arraignment took place, just to show the judge. This wasn't really introduced as testimony, but just to show the judge that, you know, these charges were bogus. These frame-up charges, this is getting back to the statement, represent the most recent link in an unbroken chain of vile anti-union attacks against the hardworking women and men of 8751. Their fighting union and the communities they serve. It is part and parcel of the Veolia City War against 8751 that has included the illegal firing of the 4 leaders, 18 unfair labor practice charges against Veolia with the National Labor Relations Board, hundreds of individual and class action grievances, and more. And when you read the police report, and I have it here for anybody who wants to look at it, it claims that Kirschbaum illegally forced his way into the room and in the process supposedly injured a Veolia office worker with a table. A class action grievance was filed against Veolia on July 1st for attempting to obstruct the legal meeting of the union in which Andrew Slip was present for. And again, the grievance was signed by a number of workers. Now, in preparation for Steve's arraignment on July 14th, phone banking was done at the Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 2222 in Boston, and this union of electrical workers, I think it represents 8,000 workers in the city, has turned over almost its entire office to Team Solidarity since last November. They have access to everything, you know, computers, phones, you know, at no cost. Hundreds of phone calls were made to the bus drivers and their supporters to come to the 8:30 a.m. hearing. It is important to take note that many of the drivers, because it's the summertime, had already left for the summer. There are 900 drivers in the union, along with bus monitors, and a lot of them have gone back to Haiti or other places, you know, for visits, and really only about between 300 and 400 drivers are left in the city for the summer. So again, the timing of these charges against Steve, there's no coincidence. It's really no coincidence that they tried to do this during the summer when the union, really in terms of numbers, is not at its full strength. But again, they had a rude awakening. Leaflets were distributed to all the different activities, including the wonderful Palestine demonstration, the Stand with Gaza demonstration that took place in Boston this past Friday, where 300 people came out, including a number of the bus drivers. Over 40 drivers and supporters who attended, again, attended the June 30th hearing. There was, we had people there who were taking their statements at the Electrical Brotherhood, you know, Union Hall, to help Barry gather all of this different evidence, including Steve Matherling from the North Carolina branch of our party, and Phoebe, and also Steve Gillis helped to prepare these statements. And of course, a lot of phone banking was done not only in Boston, but right here in New York City and elsewhere. And every call that was made, at least when I was there was no negative, response at all. Either the workers already knew about the arraignment, or, they said, well, we're going to be there. We're going to be there. I'm going to come after my shift or whatever. It was such a positive response. It was just really pretty amazing. And on the day of the arraignment itself, about 100 drivers showed up to the arraignment after their 6 a.m. shift was over, or other times, along with the 50 supporters, including members of the Boston branch of Workers' World Party. And we had people come from Virginia and Philadelphia and New York and elsewhere. It was just really, it turned out to be like a sort of a national response to this assault. And while the picket line was going on out front, the bus drivers and supporters began to pack the courtroom once Steve's case was announced on the docket. And just to give you a flavor of what happened, when they said that Steve was going to be one of the first ones called, the line for, going through the, you had to go through security and all this stuff, it was out the door. Totally out the door. And everybody was wearing these little stickers. So bus drivers, supporters, it was pretty stunning, actually, and very exciting to see all these people come out for this arraignment. And some of the people who were attending the arraignment included City Councilor Charles Yancey, who's been really on the side of the bus drivers from the very beginning, really coming out and trying to stop Veolia, from, privatizing everything in the city. But there was former city councilor Chuck Turner, who was there, who just came out of prison himself on bogus charges. Radio personality Charles Clemens, who was taken off the air of Touch 106.1, a very progressive black station. He was taken off the air for showing his support for the bus drivers, because he always had Steve on, and Andre, he had them all on his show showing solidarity. There was Sandra McIntosh from the Coalition for Equal Quality Education, which is really leading the fight against the resegregation plan, and also a representative from Black Educators Association of Massachusetts. And when Steve's case was called by the judge, the prosecutor tried to ask the judge for a restraining order against Steve to keep him off Veolia's bus property, where he's always performed his grievance duties. But the judge shot that down. Barry Wilson again held up these signed statements refuting the Boston police charges that the prosecutor read from this, from this sheet. A September 15th pretrial hearing has been set for Steve, and there was no bail set. He was released on his own reconnaissance. The hearing took no more than 5 to 7 minutes. Because I think people, the judge and they all saw the people in the courtroom, mainly black, were there for Steve. And so they just I think they just wanted us out of there, And once Steve left the docket, everybody, almost the whole courtroom, got up and just followed him outside. It was pretty dramatic. And, but even what was more dramatic and amazing is when Steve walked through the courthouse doors. When the workers saw him, and it was just, and Sharon was there too. It was just really a moment. The workers started chanting "Union, Union, Union." Their eyes lit up. They had these tremendous smiles on their face. They were all on the steps of the courthouse, which is illegal. You're not supposed to have any type of rally or anything on the steps. The cops did nothing. There was 150 people on the steps, cheering and clapping and again, just yelling "Union, Union, Union." And so you saw all these black fists in the air, just pumping the air with, such a militancy. And I remember, I'll never forget when Teresa came up to me with tears welling in her eyes. She said, "These black workers really love Steve." And I answered something like, "Yeah. Ain't that the truth?" And this love for and respect for Steve and also for the other leaders too, Gillis and Andre and, you know, and Murchison, you know, but especially for Steve Kirschbaum as a founder of the union. You know, it's 40 years. He's put 40 years of his life into this union. And what that means, because he is a revolutionary communist, he has put the party's theoretical understanding of promoting social unionism, not business unionism, along with putting the national question into a daily practice, especially with a union that's mainly, you know, people of color. And this is really what has, you know, really endeared, you know, the workers to the union leadership. It's a principled fighting union that has opened its doors and its arms to immigrant workers, especially workers of color in general, who have historically and systematically been barred from the once lily-white unions, starting after the Civil War and with the demise of Reconstruction. So we had this impromptu rally for about 45 minutes. Again, it was really a coup, and I think if the police did try to stop it, it would have been a rebellion. It really, they knew that. They knew these, you know, because these workers come from Haiti. They've seen it all. They have seen it all. And they're not going to let 3 or 4 cops stop them. That's, you know. Another important component which involves 8751, again, is the overall struggle to stop the resegregation of Boston, which includes a proposed plan by the city to take 7th and 8th graders off the yellow school buses and force them to ride the subways. And this is part of the overall assault on public education with the cuts and the layoffs of the teachers. And it's going to mean the layoffs of monitors, bus monitors, and the bus drivers. So the union has an invested interest in terms of what happens with this struggle against resegregation. Because this plan is really to take Boston back to the days when black school children were denied the right to equal quality education before the '74 March Against Racism. It's an attack on quality public education and the right to unionize, whether it's the bus drivers or the teachers or the class aides, all for the sake to profit. To make profits via the promotion of charter schools, and there are a growing number of charter schools in Boston like other places around the country. So comrades and friends, just to wind up, because we're also going to see a wonderful video from Mike, who was also there, about the arraignment. Again, the struggle is far from being over. The felony charges against Steve are still in place. They have not been dropped. We cannot put anything past the city or Veolia to find any excuse to jail him before the September 15th hearing. So he is not out of the woods. The drivers are still fired. So, you know, it's just that, you know, the union is really doing everything that it can to keep momentum going, to keep the spirit up, and to keep connecting to the community, because this is a vital lifeline that the union has to the community, because the union is part of the community. So we have to do everything we can now to pack the courtroom for September 15th, which is the pretrial hearing. It's not the trial, but it's to hear a lot of the discovery evidence on both sides. And so we have to set into motion, especially next month, how we're going to send national brigades back to Boston by the end of August and up until September 15th, and maybe even beyond September 15th, depending on what happens. And of course, sending brigades to Boston has to be coordinated with also the important struggles in Los Angeles around the ballot initiative for $15 an hour. There's going to be an assembly held tomorrow. Also in Detroit, which is really the ground zero for the economic crisis, where today there was a march to demand an end to the shutoff of water. So dropping the charges against Steve, the rehiring of the 4 leaders, and contract justice are all demands tied to fighting austerity at home and abroad, including as Veolia represents. So comrades and friends, if you're retired, if you're semi-retired, or if you have any time you can take off from your job, either by the end of August or after Labor Day, please consider going to Boston. It's really an incredible experience.